Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mall Talkers. I'm Michael Paskett, aka The Mall Guy, and this is the show where retail and mall pros come to talk shop. In 30 minutes or less, I'm bringing you conversations from the strategists, the operators, the innovators, driving the evolution of malls today. You'll leave with tactics, stories, and trends shaping what malls were, where malls have been, and what they're becoming. So pull up a chair, grab a coffee, and let's talk malls. Today, I have another special guest, Catherine Riccomini, the Director of Marketing for Shaftesbury Capital. Today's topic is a very, very interesting one. It's happening throughout the world, and I would say their properties are ahead of the curve. We'll be talking about how REIT marketers are leaning into the third space. I'll say welcome, Catherine.
Hi, Michael. Lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself for all the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work for Shaftesbury Capital. We are lucky enough to be the landlord of some of the best destinations across London's West End, which includes Covent Garden, Carnaby Street and the surrounds, parts of Soho and Chinatown.
Yes, I would say the best is putting it lightly. Going there, I thought they were good until I visited them 2 or 3 years ago. It is astounding what you're doing with these properties.
Thank you. I think for us, they are incredible locations that have really rich heritage. So we're lucky to be able to be curating a moment of their time as we move through.
Without question. And I obviously go for work meetings and stuff. I always go middle of the week, business hours, and it's always shocking to see just how packed they are at all hours of the day. And I think that lends into the today conversation of a lot of it does go into the third space, bringing people in, yes, for retail, but for experiences, for activations, for everything else that people are craving these days.
Absolutely.
So I'll go ahead and start off. So we're talking about the third space. How would you define the third space in today's context of shopping centers or retail?
I think it's a really interesting question. What does that mean to be a third space? The destinations that we look after have always been places that people want to come and meet historically, but also now today. And that might be meeting for a conversation, for an office lunch, for a shopping trip, for a family get together, and a lot of occasion experiences as well. So actually, the spaces that we look after have to be able to offer something for all of these occasions and all of these audiences. And that might be out in the open air, or that might be within some of the retail or the hospitality offers that we have in and around our places and spaces. But what I think is quite unique is we are lucky to have a number of pedestrianised spaces both across Carnaby Street and Covent Garden, and that in itself lends itself to a third space, places where anything can happen, anything can be possible, and you're encouraged to spend as much time as there is. But I think in short, people nowadays are seeking experiences wherever they go. Lots of places and lots of different pastimes are competing for one's time, whether that's time at home on the sofa or time going out into the West End, for example. And so you have to compete at the highest level. And that means there's a huge number of experiences that people are seeking out. And it's not enough just to have one experience. People are looking for experiences within the retailers or within the restaurants that they're going to, an element of theatre or an element of excitement and newness. But they're also looking for that from the spaces that they choose to visit and from the other offers that might be there, whether that's competitive socializing, immersive art experiences. So the choice is really, really rich for people, no matter what it is that they're looking for.
I could not agree more. In all my conversations, people in general, the competition for their time, for their money, for all these things is at the highest it's ever been. How do you think about at a strategic level, bringing in things, bringing in retailers, tenant mix, marketing against it for the third space? Because it's easier said than done, obviously.
It's easier said than done. That said, I think you spoke to right at the start how we're doing it in a different way. And actually the advantage that we have is these destinations have been offering that third space for centuries of time. If you look at Covent Garden, whilst everyone today talks about the experience economy, it probably always has been the leader in what is the experience economy through its wealth of theatre, its culture and everything that's there. So really what we're trying to do is find those things that are complementary to those the other bits of infrastructure that lie in and around the destinations that are there. And I think key for us is really that blend, being able to have something for everybody, particularly if you are a shopping centre or a destination like us, where you have a really broad mix of audiences, where you have residents and you have office workers, but you also have locals and you have international visitors. You've really got to think about the types of people that are coming, the offer that you can provide, which is right for all of them, but then also the reasons to keep them coming back, and making sure then that you're using your channels really smartly to be able to educate people on what that offer is, but also help them discover what's new and how to get the best out of their time when they're coming here. And for me, that's just as true for an office worker as it might be for someone who's popped over from Spain for a weekend.
Without question. And I would even add, like 10 years ago, retail was very transactional. It was meant to get people in, shop, purchase, window shop, whatever it might be, get them out. You've taken it and have always been in front of this, creating experiential, going past transactional. How have you been or thought about redefining the role of retail just beyond the transactions?
I think it's the most critical part of retail these days is to reward the consumer for coming in and for shopping with you. And that's reward through not only having really high quality product that suits the price point that people want, but an experience and a memory that they'll take away, that they'll share, and that ideally they'll become a brand advocate as a result of that experience. So for us, that's achieved through a number of ways. You can't always have the shiniest and the latest new retailer, although that's something that we actively try and seek out. It's really the blend of a store that might have been in situ for 40 years, sitting alongside a newest entrant from the States, for example, or a digitally native brand that's chosen to do maybe a short-term pop-up just to test the market and the waters. It's that blend that people are seeking. Nobody really just wants to go to one place that doesn't have a sense of authenticity, of character, of place. And that sense of place is built by the different layers of retail that can be found there. So you might have a great omni-channel brand that really understands the power of what in-store retail can do for their online channels, but equally you might have a brand that has no idea of sort of a digital presence because they're just rooted in the history of what they do, and all of those things support the audiences that are out there.
Yep. And within that, so everything we're talking about is on the subjective side of things. It is working. What signals or data are telling you that this is working, that consumers are craving the third space, that you should be doubling down on this?
Yeah, so as you say, some of it is the strategy that we know and has been proven from shaping places for many years. But equally, we look at our digital channels, we look at what are people searching for? What are the places that people keep coming back to or seeking out time and again? For Covent Garden, that's the market building. So it's a place that's full of history, but also some of the more exciting new entrants to market. They look at places like Neal's Yard, which is highly Instagrammable, but also a well-known district. But then they also seek out some of the food destinations. There's a 7 Dials food hall that's full of different operations. We have an amazing sort of 3-story courtyard that's full of restaurants called Kingly Court. And that is always in the top 5 hits of what people are looking for. So that demand doesn't really plateau. We see some of those, the more experiential-led dining, the more experiential-led places that sort of have a lot to see and do around them. Those constantly rank for us. At Christmas, for example, our interactive map on the Covent Garden website, you guys very innovatively put a little pin of the Christmas tree, which is well known as London's largest hand-picked real Christmas tree. And that is one of our most viewed pins because that is the thing that makes us unique, but the people don't know how to find their way around. So actually we know that whilst we can see lots of people in the area, to know that it's validated by people seeking out some of those specific little nuggets of really what they want to plan their visit around, that sort of backs up what we believe to be true by spending time here.
Brilliant plug of Mappedin. If only there was a map where you can get the analytics on what people are actually searching for. Thank you.
But it's data that we do use and we do look at. So it's important to us, particularly when we are maybe one step removed from a traditional shopping mall where perhaps all your systems are linked up and speak together. For us, our digital channels are our primary way to engage our audiences. So the more that we can drill down into those, the more that we can see which social posts really resonated, what was the bit that got the most engagement from people, and sometimes it will surprise you. So you can have a good sense of what you believe to be true, and then you can get completely surprised by an audience's reaction and keep educating yourself.
Without question. And even on the Christmas piece, my wife loves Christmas lights, just the whole season. I had the benefit of going to Covent Gardens in December to meet up with you guys last year, and took pictures of the Christmas tree, just the aura and what it was, sending pictures to her. She has never been more jealous of the work that I do now at this point. And at this coming year, we're planning to say hi, just as a heads up. So it is something for everyone listening to go. It is worth it, without question.
And I think that's what's interesting. You can create the most incredible physical experiences, but it's the technology and the social and the digital that sits around it that suddenly gets it amplified globally for you. So the investment in those spaces, those unique experiences that connect emotionally with the consumer, then all of a sudden they do become your brand advocate. They are an ambassador for you, telling you how great it is, and they've shared that on your behalf and become, your advert for the place. So the physical in that and the digital and how they best work together to promote a place are really important.
Without question. And I get this question a lot, so I want to hear your thoughts on this. Is yes, people want to double down on the third space. Where do they start? Like, what is the most important, and how do you think about it? Like lounges, events, food halls, co-working, seasonal. There's a myriad of different things you could invest in. What should they be investing in?
It's a good question, and I think there's many routes into that. I think if you don't know how to approach it, there's a few things that people always want to do, and they always want to eat, and they always want to have a good time. So it feels like a safe bet and a safe entry. We're very lucky in that we have the Piazza, which is a flexible space that can constantly be programmed with different types of events that can almost test and learn what different consumers are seeking for from that third space. So that might be a great experiential event, working with the likes of Chanel to bring a skate ramp down to the Piazza, showcase Olympians doing their skateboarding. Or it could be as simple as thinking, actually, what does a series of food trucks look like during half term when people are taking their kids to the transport museum and they need something that is quick and that is easy and that is fun for their children. So where you've got the ability to test and learn concepts without being too rigid, I personally think is really valuable. We also work within a structure across Carnaby Street and Covent Garden where you don't have the ability to have huge placemaking sites that you can change all the time. So to be really nimble with the offer, to try and anticipate the trends and to dip your toe into the water also means that the consumer's got something new, relevant that they can keep coming back to, and it builds that loyalty to place and that sense of discovery. But again, that only works if you've got great channels to be able to promote that. And one of the biggest challenges we find where you have lots of change constantly, lots of events across destinations, is really getting people to discover that and understand what they're expecting from that. So making sure that you're really on top of being able to share all of this content in a really meaningful way that gives people what they want. So a good example of that is we've started doing much more itinerary-based content that thinks about the specific journeys that people are looking for. Maybe they want to go on an afternoon tea with their mum. Maybe they actually just want to seek out the latest sort of fashion. Maybe they want to do a beauty trail across Covent Garden, and providing some of that packaged up. That might be on the website as an article, or it might be really quick fire social edits that people then save down and think, actually, I'm going to come back to that one. So guiding them across the district as well.
Yep. As a former skater boy who did, in fact, have to say see you later because of my knees in high school, I would have absolutely gone to that skateboard exhibition.
I mean, it's amazing what you can do on just a piece of open space within the heart of central London that you really wouldn't think would be possible.
It's super creative, and I give you mad kudos to that. Nobody's perfect, though. Do you have any examples of like what hasn't worked, and what did you learn from that?
There's nothing huge that hasn't worked, and mostly because our ability to do this is on a short-term test and learn basis. But what I'll say is, where you have great sort of events or spaces, it's often the operational management around them that creates whether or not something works. So you can create the most beautiful of lounges or co-working spaces, but if the customer experience as you move through that, if there's friction around how you book, if it's a slow experience to get your guests in, it's those kind of elements that mean something might not work, even though the principle of what you're doing is absolutely right, and there might be several others that are doing it well and successfully. So as I say, the benefit of us trying to do stuff on a short-term basis is you can test things, and if they don't work, you can switch them off just as easily as you switch them on. And I think one of the things I would love is to be able to do more of that, but we operate in an environment where we have heritage buildings that are very set in their square footage and their use and their ability. So we have to be quite nimble and just work around what we have rather than being able to smash things together to create new spaces that work. But as I say, I take the example of Kingly Court, where we have a number of restaurants across a 3-story courtyard. For us, really, it's about thinking, how do you keep evolving that concept? Because not every restaurant might work for forever. How do you keep thinking about what's the next thing to get them in? But also, how do you program the space so it keeps being relevant? We are about to launch a series of DJ events that sit within the space. So from Thursdays to Sundays, we can enliven it a little bit, particularly throughout the summer months, and just think, okay, how do you just dial that up a little notch? And then actually give people, again, another reason to come back or a reason to book you, where maybe they were thinking, do you know what, there's a few places that we could do. Again, comes back to that, how do we compete for people's time and give them an extra value add and extra experience that maybe they couldn't get somewhere else?
So what I'm hearing is you're looking to hire me as a DJ from my university DJ days, is what I'm hearing.
You're a DJ, you're a skateboarder, what do you know?
You're starting to see the persona that I used to, an old life, now father of 3, way different. So all of this is great. Tangibly, objectively, what are the analytics that you are tracking within all of this? The dwell time, repeat visits, tenant sales lift, etc.
I think all of those are important. We are essentially a landlord, so unless we can create spaces and experience that allow our occupiers to thrive, we're not really doing our job right. But dwell time is so crucial because it allows people time to spend their day and discover new things that maybe, they were only intending to go to Apple to get their laptop fixed. But actually, if you can curate a place that invites people to stay and find another retailer or find a little pocket of space to grab a coffee from, that's a real metric for success. But equally, we need experiences to be based on authenticity and real value. We spend quite a lot of time thinking about how we manage our portfolio. How do you keep it clean? How do you keep it safe? How do you keep it looking beautiful? So as I say, then some of your other metrics are actually, how much are people talking about you? Are they talking about you how you want to be talked about? Are they talking about you in the spaces that you want to talk about? And are they sharing it, and what are they saying? So actually monitoring social coverage, monitoring social sentiment is just as important for us. So there's something like 2.5 million hashtags of Covent Garden on Instagram. People are talking about us. There was a survey a couple of years back, and Covent Garden was Europe's most popular shopping destination when they pulled in the TripAdvisor reviews, the hashtag shares, the UGC sentiment. And for us, actually, that's just as strong a metric as how long people are spending time here, because really that should be a sort of a virtuous circle where one can lead to the other, can lead to the other. So actually thinking about a number of those things, both sort of commercial, but also sentiment and emotion wise, I think are important. And those are generally the bits that keep people coming back. So you're not just getting one transaction out of them, it's multiple transactions over time.
Yep. You're remaining at the tip of the tongue for everyone, which it is interesting because I have never heard that being a metric, but you are right. Like, it is absolutely essential to track to make sure you are at the tip of everyone's tongue, but more importantly, seen as somewhere, a destination to go to, clean, safe, a place to be desired.
Yeah, I think, that is important. And I think London gets a hard time sometimes. And there are incredible parts of London that are exactly like that. So the more positive PR for those places, the better.
No question. Are you seeing technology enhance or distract from the human aspect of the third space?
This is such a good question. The places that I look after and run, Covent Garden, Chinatown, Carnaby Street, these are essentially human-centric places that have been around for donkey's years and will remain around for more. They are so rich in heritage. That could be the architectural buildings, the rich architecture, that could be the culture that's here, that could be the history that sits behind every facade. That's all the human stories that people want, but it's no good unless people know about them. So for us, what technology can do is enhance discovery and enhance people's ability to actually find what's there. So we don't just lease places, we create these amazing experiences, we curate these brands. But that only works if people can actually find where they're going, if people can actually understand when things are open. So technology for us supports what we do and it amplifies what we do. We work generally within a conservation area, within a listed environment. So we don't necessarily have some of the, or it's much more difficult for us to perhaps be really clever with technology through the real estate. But actually what we find is that people want to pre-plan what they're doing. They want to find out what's happening while they're here. So for us, making sure that our channels are as sophisticated as they can be is really important. So we invested in a new website for Covent Garden, for Soho recently. As you know, we embedded your map technology within that because it's important for us that people can discover it. Some of the most questions that people ask generally are how to get places, how to find things. It is hard to navigate when you're a series of little sort of streets of, Victorian charm. That's great, but people get lost. So actually technology for us really enhances that and amplifies our voice.
2 plugs in 1 episode. My word. What role do local or emerging brands play in shaping the sense of community? Because I think it goes and pairs well with the previous question. And think of like an e-commerce that's moving to brick and mortar, might not be known, might not be having something in there, Pop Mart, just any of the newer stores that are coming in that people are looking towards, but could be difficult to find.
Yeah, I think we touched on this earlier, but layering those choices of retail and the difference of retail is really important and what makes a place that's rich in character. So in Soho, for example, we've got a tailor that's been in and around there for the best part of 40 years, and people know him, they seek him out. That's part of this British charm. And around the corner, we've just introduced a digitally native brand from the States called Addicted, which is like literally filled with teenage girls queuing outside. The only store of its kind in Europe. And actually, those two things can coexist happily because there is such a big ecosystem of people, both local and international and domestic, that are coming in to find something. But it comes back to what's the spirit of the place? What do we stand for? And actually, if you take the example of Carnaby Street and Soho, you were always expecting to find something new, always expecting to find something with a personality and a point of view. That could be a new entrant into market. So we launched last year a digitally native brand, Tala, an incredible athleisure brand driven by a very strong, savvy businesswoman, Grace Beverley, into her first retail store. Again, for them, they wanted to be somewhere where they knew that they could get their audiences to in a place they felt comfortable, but also somewhere where you can find a brand new set of audiences and build your brand and build that brand presence. But that can work really well with a department store like Liberty of London, right at the end of the road. And it's all of those layers of authenticity that build up and make the place stand for something. We believe that our destinations aren't just shopping centres, they're brands within their own right. Why shouldn't we be a lifestyle brand and consider what we mean and what can people expect from us? And that means everything from place, the experience, what the place looks and feels like, what does service look like, what's the brand mix, where can I eat, and what do the streets look like as I move through them. And we're very lucky that we're in a position to manage a lot of those things on behalf of both the occupier and the visitors that come see us.
Yeah. And I would just double down on that. Like, you guys have world-class tenant mix, a little bit of something for everyone, new, unique, trendy. So kudos within that. And I would even say where you're going within this, it's always at the forefront. How do you think about marketing against this? Because there's obviously a lot of mm, new places. Yes, we can do omni-channel. Like, do you actually think about where they should be positioned, connected to like Taylor and I forget the store, but teenage girl store?
Yeah, we do think about location. Sometimes it's driven by brand adjacency and making sure that you've got balance. That might be balance in categories. So you've got sportswear, athleisure, performance all together. Sometimes it's driven practically. So
Yep.
Covent Garden's market building is filled with beauty and accessory brands because they're tiny little shoebox stores that need high density retail that doesn't require stockroom space.
Yep.
So actually within that, then you start to curate what suits that space, who needs to work together, and what are those adjacencies to make sure that the mix can work. But there are other examples of how that maybe doesn't work for destinations that are third spaces, and that would be thinking about Chinatown, which
Yep.
is really interesting as a sort of cultural third space. It is a space where people come together to be part of their community or to find the food and tastes of home. Or it's also a space that people come to discover that because they know absolutely nothing about it. And within that, you've got places, restaurants that have existed for, decades. And then you've got new entrants to market that are maybe doing stuff that's a little bit viral, a little bit more interesting. But that blend becomes a community third space where people know that they can find the very best of East and Southeast Asian food that might be comforting and home and a community, or it might be a place that's actually, I could do Covent Garden or I could do Regent Street anytime, but I want something different and I want something that feels authentic. So actually, when you start to think about marketing a place like that, actually sometimes you don't want to touch it too much. And it's really important to keep the DNA of what makes that place attractive to all those different types of people that visit it. And then I think you're spending time and you're spending your money in a very different way.
Yep. It doesn't seem forced. It seems like you're enjoying the experience. You're happy to be doing what you're doing.
Indeed.
I will say, objectively, you guys are killing it. You guys are doing great. I want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to chat, to answer all of my questions. Do you have any parting words, anything you want to leave with?
What I'll say is, if you haven't been down to the West End recently, come down. It's not just my patch. There are so many different places to explore, and having walkable cities with incredible, world-class, high-quality experiences at literally every single turn that you go through. We're very privileged, those of us based in London, to have so much richness and experience on our doorstep. And you just look around the place and there are so many people to keep taking learnings from, and to always just be like, gosh, how did they manage to do that? So it's a place full of inspiration, full of absolutely first class experiences, not just what we're doing, but what many others around us are doing. So enjoy all of those things and always be inspired by it.
Yep. That's exactly what I did after meeting with you guys last time. Spent a half day just getting absolutely lost. Time well spent. Couldn't have thought of any other way to spend my time. Thank you again for having us. Thank you to the Mall Talkers for listening. We'll see you next episode.